So not to lose any more time, I want to welcome Steve Delavan from Meruelo Group, CIO. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me today. Great presentations. Before this one, I think I want to go to work for Ron. Really inspiring presentation, very exciting place to work, say farm, or farmers. Farmers, sorry, oops. Oops. So my presentation today is really kind of my journey, more of a reflection on how I've seen and experienced transformation and change across different organizations and with IT, but more at a personal level, more at the individual, how change impacts leaders, how it impacts the human spirit, how it impacts the business and all of those types of things. So I want to take you through that journey. It's going to be more of a reflection than kind of a 30,000-foot futuristic kind of view. So let's talk through that. So I want to take you through my background real quick. So I grew up in Boise, Idaho. I went to school at Boise State University, and that's great. Then joined EDS in 1984 down in Dallas, Texas, when Ross Perot was still running the company. I was a systems engineer there. I then went to work for Bachman Information Systems, and they were, I don't know if you, I think a few of you might remember, but case vendor, where we did modeling. We did data and process modeling back in the day to understand how the business worked and the information we used. I then went to work for Taco Bell and the PepsiCo organization in Irvine, Orange County, and then they became Yum Brands once they got spun off. And this was a really awakening for me. The organization in PepsiCo, they really invested in their people. They spent a lot of time developing their people in terms of management development, people development, technology development, all of those things. Then I actually, my first real senior leadership role, I went to work for one of the divisions of PepsiCo, Chevy's Mexican Restaurants, and ran the IT organization there in a casual dining. It was a casual dining restaurant chain. I don't know if who remembers Chevy's. It was based out of San Francisco. The next was I did a startup. I was the CIO for MySize.com during that 1999, right at the bubble. Very entrepreneurial experience. It was a great experience. Spent a year there, and then of course the money dried up, and that was the end of that. So next, I actually joined Sony Pictures Entertainment. That was around 2000, and became the divisional CIO for the corporate and financial groups. And then after several years there, I moved on to London for Sony and worked in London for 5 years, supporting and looking after IT for London and all of Europe. I came back from Europe and did some consulting stints with Alvarez & Marsal and at Fox. And then about 2.5 years ago, I became the CIO at Meruelo Group. And I'm going to take you through Meruelo Group here in short order. But Meruelo Group is a family-owned private equity conglomerate, and very different environment than any of those other experiences that I had in the past. So Meruelo Group, it's a family of companies. Two Cuban guys, actually back in the early 80s, out of Downey, started a restaurant chain, and then they grew that into a little over $1 billion conglomerate. So here's some of the things about Meruelo Group, the different verticals. So first and foremost, we have a casino in Reno. It's called the Grand Sierra. It was the old MGM. Huge casino and gaming property. We have 6 different construction companies. So this is heavy commercial construction, electrical, underground, you name it. And these are all scattered all over Southern California. We own a food distribution company called Fujisan, which is actually sushi, fresh sushi, that distributes and white labels to Costco and Trader Joe's and all of those grocery chains. Over 1 million units a month actually go out from Fuji, and that's based here in Southern California as well. Alex Meruelo owns a community bank here, Commercial Bank of California as well. So next was actually the restaurant chain called La Pizza Loca that they originally started their company with. And then to add more to the confusion, just to mix it up a little bit, they also own television broadcasts and radio stations. And then a large property management portfolio, so commercial property. The one big one is Pacific Court in downtown Long Beach, but a whole over 500 properties, actually. So what do you do with that? Right? So that was the challenge, and actually that was the question. You know, where do you start? And as I came into the role, it was all about understanding what kind of change or need for change this organization needed, or these businesses needed, and working in a very entrepreneurial private equity environment, which is very different than the Fortune 500's environments that a lot of us have work in or have experience with. So lots of different industries and verticals. Where do you find the synergy? Where shouldn't you find the synergy, right? Different types of leadership, all of those things. So this is, I think, you know, we talk about change, we talk about innovation, we talk about it a lot at the 30,000-foot level, but how do we get our IT people to actually see it and understand it and be aware of it, and then develop a strategy to, you know, to adapt to it or influence it, right? So I don't teach that a lot in IT organizations, because part of building a great strategy is understanding the change that's happening to you or the change that you need to make, that the business needs, all of those kinds of things. So it's understanding and identifying that change at a personal level, at a human, your team, your senior team, and the business partners that you have in the organization, the presidents. I've got 15 presidents that I face off with every day. So crafting a strategy for change and transformation at Meruelo Group. I know this is going to sound kind of plain Jane and kind of basic, but these are the things I was taught when I was growing up. I had a great mentor at Taco Bell, and she taught me how to identify and look at an organization and understand the types of changes you need to make. Her name is Susan Cram, by the way. I don't know if you, anybody here know Susan? Yeah, a few. So you don't know what you don't know. So tactically, I came into the organization and needed to understand what was needed, right? So taking a shot at the leadership and key stakeholders, engaging the ownership. So they never really had, the two owners never had really a senior technology guy to collaborate with. Everything had been very pragmatic, very practical type of environment for these guys. And technology, quite honestly, for them was a cost, and they just saw it as a cost. Not very forward thinking, growth was about acquisitions. So, learning the business, seeking to understand, engaging the owners, and at a level that I could build a relationship at, right? So it's all about no promises and just listening and fact finding. What are the big issues? What does the business need? Trying to understand what's going on across all those verticals and, across the enterprise, and find as much data as you can get wherever you can find it. As well, going through that process, it was really, really quickly understanding who the presidents were champions of IT and who were not, right? So who were those neophytes that really didn't get it? And in the construction world, believe it or not, there hasn't been significant technology innovation in these large construction firms. So they're really operating back in the 1980s, perspective. So along with understanding and building relationships with the presidents of the companies, you also do your homework on the basics, right? The operations side of it. And how do you build your roadmaps across the business environment? So understanding kind of what's the organizational maturity for the business divisions and the IT team. So I needed to go in and understand how those businesses operated and the maturity of those businesses, as well as really where was the technology and the IT teams as well, right? In terms of policy and governance, decision making, and the risk profile, right? How much risk would they stand for? Understanding the technology landscape, right? Taking inventory of the entire stack, from facilities, core infrastructure, network, all across those categories. And then next was, okay, how do you really get to know all these people and understand the people in the organization of IT and getting to know those folks so that you can, so you can inspire them, like Ron spoke to. So when I walked in and after doing a lot of that work, what I really found was that the common theme was Meruelo was a wait for it to break, highly entrepreneurial environment, meaning they didn't, there wasn't a lot of planning and there wasn't a lot of investment and there wasn't a lot of budgeting in terms of IT spend. And cost was a significant item, and you pretty much needed to justify every aspect of spend to the owners. And they had they're close to every dime. They're looking at every P&L and looking at every dollar. So how do you formulate an approach to get them to see what kind of investment you need to make? How do you get them moving out of that wait for it to break reactive mode into a more planful, hey, if we spend a bit more every year in a planful way, how do we can move the organization forward? We can start innovating processes. We can start minimizing the risk to the organization, because there was a lot of risk in terms of data security and network access and all the security issues that you come into. And so that's actually what happened. Was I had to lay out a plan that showed the ownership that with a little bit more spend in the right areas, you could minimize those risks and actually start talking about innovation, process improvement, better efficiencies, all of those things that are basics, but it was understanding. I had to do this evaluation, go through this process, work with my IT teams as well to prepare them for these changes. And it was all about getting them to prepare for more growth, because that's what I kept hearing from all of the senior folks, was we're going to acquire 2 more companies, we're going to expand. The construction businesses have actually expanded 40% in the last 2 years, so lots of growth. So how do we move them out of that